what our method does is bring you back to having a really strong foundational relationship with yourself. And so many of these modalities do, like whether you're talking about talk therapy, whether you're talking about somatic work, whether you're talking about embodiment, there's so many different sort of therapies and modalities. All of them, because we've like dabbled in everything, all of them get you to come back to the relationship you have with yourself. And it's like creating those strong foundations, understanding why you think, feel, believe, etc. about yourself and about the world around you, how that's limiting you, whether that's expanding you, whether you like, what do you want, what do you need, what do you desire, and what's holding you back, like what's stopping you from taking action. So like all of these things come back to that.
Hello and welcome back to Stories of Being. I'm Ingrid, and each week I sit down with individuals who are challenging the way we relate to ourselves, each other, and our planet. In this week's episode, I talk to Tori and Sarra from the Expansive Space. The Expansive Space is a coaching and personal development business that is all about making growth, personal development, and moving through kind of our sticking points or limiting beliefs accessible and attainable. I actually worked with Tori and Sarra for 3 months at the end of last year, primarily to help me get over this kind of fear and paralysis I had over, owning and talking about and sharing, on Instagram or whatever about this podcast. I felt that the podcast was valuable and interesting and the conversations were great, but yeah, I was really stuck and scared to actually put it out there. So I loved working with them, and I've really felt such a shift since working with them. So I loved having this conversation with Tori and Sarra. In this episode, we talk everything from human design, limiting beliefs, the importance of embodiment, and heaps more. I hope that this conversation's empowering and just kind of like creates a spark in terms of what's possible when it comes to changing the way we feel or, the perspective we have on things. I think sometimes we feel certain things or we think something and, we think that we can't change it, but there's so much opportunity for change. So yeah, I hope that it's valuable and you enjoy it. Of course, if you like it, share it with a friend, subscribe, leave a review. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just hope you find it valuable and enjoyable. So to kick things off, I'm really curious to know from both of you, when you kind of started your careers and entered adulthood, could you ever have imagined that you were living life the way you do now and also running a business, the Expansive Space, a business like that now? Was that ever on your radar?
That's such a good question. I feel like I was going to be in this space when I retired.
Okay.
Like I always felt like it was something I was going to end up in because I'd seen so many practitioners and healers, and I'd had so many people say to me, like, you're going to be like a healer one day, or you're going to be in this space, you're going to be supporting people, you're going to be helping people. I'm like, yeah. Once I tick off all of my career goals in like PR, marketing, fashion, I'll get there. When I retire, it can just be the thing that I slow down and do. Had no idea I'd be doing it right now. No.
Yeah. And Tori?
For me, I was just laughing because at the time, so me coming out of high school, deciding what I wanted to do with my life, deciding to go with fashion and then starting my career and everything like that. Absolutely not, because I didn't have any kind of spiritual or self-development practice at that time. I was just completely unconscious, living my life, doing my thing in the matrix. And so absolutely not. There was no chance. However, in hindsight, I look back and it's really funny because when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, literally in Australia, we decide these are my options, when you apply for a university, right? And my first one was fashion. And then my second and third and fourth were all psychology. Oh. So I was literally tossing up between do I go and study fashion business or do I be a psychologist? That was my two things. And I was always curious about how people worked, and psychology was one of my favorite subjects. And I just loved asking people questions. So in hindsight, I can look back and go, you had those interests then in terms of like the way the mind works and how people work. But I definitely did not think like starting my career choosing fashion, it didn't even occur to me whatsoever that I would be in self-development, running my own business in this space at all.
Yes, isn't that interesting? And so you both work together at a fashion company, right? That's how
Yeah.
What was the kind of journey like, or the catalyst for you guys deciding, okay, we're leaving, we're starting this business? So it sounds like you kind of were always in this world in a way, and Tori, like you said, it was more unconscious.
Yeah.
But yeah, was there just like a moment, or was it where you decided to make the decision, or what was that journey like for you guys? And was it a difficult decision to make?
So like you've said, Ingrid, I have been in this world for a really long time. Like ever since I was little, I always knew that there was something else going on out there. Like I knew energy, but I didn't know the words. I didn't know the language. I knew what manifestation was, but I didn't know what it was. Like I didn't have access to tools or resources to say, this is what that is. And as I got older, I started getting into self-development, and I started working on myself from when I was properly, like I started like yoga and meditation when I was 14, but properly started working on myself when I was 18. So that was like really uncovering like patterns, thoughts, beliefs, all of that. And then I've always been a career girl as well. Like I've always loved working, loved business. It was so funny. Yes, we worked in fashion, but I had looked back on a letter I'd written to myself when I was really young, being like, how's your job in fashion going? And I didn't even study fashion. I studied nutrition. Like I had no idea that I was going to end up there. But I loved working and I loved all of that. I loved the aesthetics, design. It all really aligns with my other values. But as I got going and got further along in my career, and I started working with people and the women in my team, and the conversations I'd have just naturally, just because it is who I am, the conversations I have with my friends and the conversations I had at work. And then as I'd have more and more conversations with my team members, it became less about the job and more about the people behind the job. And I started to get curious about that. But I was not aware of anything in this space. It wasn't like, this is what I'm going to be doing. It was just something that I was naturally inclined to. And then I remember getting to a point in my career where I was like, okay, I've been in this for 10 years in social media, PR, marketing, been doing this for a while. And I felt this urge within me that I wanted something different, but I didn't know what that was. I thought it was like, I was just going to move into a different part of marketing or a more specialized part. Like I didn't realize it was going to be something completely different. And I just had this feeling of, I want more, don't know what it is. So I had conversations at my work, like I want something different. I was going to be offered positions like to kind of go through and decide on. And then Tori and I, all amongst that, we started really connecting. So we started connecting on like professional development, then personal development. And then COVID happened. And that's when our friendship just went from like, we're colleagues to like, we are best friends. Like we know everything about each other all throughout COVID. And Tori will go into it, but she kind of went through her own experience during COVID and a lot of changes. And I was going through stuff as well. And we were communicating back and forth. And it's quite lonely when you're in this space. And especially for me, like growing up and not really having many people to talk to about what I thought. I always thought I'd sound crazy, or like, what are you even talking about? And when I connected with Tori, I was able to have these conversations, and Tori was going through her journey and I was able to be there for her and she was able to be there for me. And Tori and I just had these moments where we were like, oh my God, imagine extending this dynamic, this support, this friendship with more and more people who need it. Like there are so many people, especially during COVID, like going through realizations, and I feel like a lot of people make decisions of what they wanted to stand for, what they didn't want to stand for anymore, and what they did want to have in their life, and they didn't want to do this hustle anymore. They wanted to slow down, and a lot of changes were going on. And then Tori and I, we got together and we were like, we just came up with this like fantasy idea, like imagine doing this. And it was so funny because that day that happened, where I said to Tori, like, imagine us doing this, Tori calls me and she's just like, Sarra, have you just gone through my phone? I've literally written out this whole business idea. And we just freaked out. And then we went, like, let's keep going with work. Like, let's keep going. Like, that's a great idea. Not going to happen. And we just kept going along. And then it got to a point where the noise is just getting louder and louder and louder, where it was like, it starts off with a little knock and then it starts off getting a bit louder and then it gets louder and louder and louder. And until you just can't ignore it. And then Tori and I had our conversation and we decided, yep, this is what we're going to do. But we had decided that after we had quit our jobs as well. So I kind of stopped and I was like, I have no clarity on what I want to do next. Nothing's coming to my mind. Yeah. It's like nothing's coming to my mind. And I knew that because I was really consumed in my work. Like I worked really long hours and quite literally you can't think of what you want to do next when you're so consumed. So made that decision to jump and quit without a plan. But it was shortly afterwards where Tori and I got together. We're like, hey, you know that fantasy idea that we came up with? Like maybe we could actually do this. But Tori had a different path on getting there.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it, Sarra. It's so fun just listening back to your story all the time. Yeah. So for me, I guess prior to COVID, I had started reading, I'd started yoga and I'd started meditating from the space of I'm really stressed and a bit burnt out from work. What can I do to support myself? So I'd started meditating and at first it was super inconsistent. At first it was 5 minutes, and then I slowly kept building that up over years. So I had quite a consistent meditation practice by COVID. I was also reading a lot of really spiritual books randomly, but then I'd be out on the weekend partying off my face, I'm reading my spiritual books and then just doing the complete opposite. So there was no integration whatsoever, pure info. Yeah. But I can't even describe to you the feelings I would have when I read those books. I remember even saying it to my partner at the time. I'm like, there's something here. I just would say random stuff and he's like, yeah, whatever, mate. And then anyway, it was really it was really COVID where my whole world completely shifted. And it's almost as soon as COVID hit, I was like, I just get to go down all the rabbit holes of things that I'm interested in. And I just would literally sit in my little cozy bed with my teas and be cooking and just be researching. I would just research. I'd watch docos, I'd read books, I'd listen to podcasts. I would just go on tangents of things that lit me up. And I'm a projector. So that's what we do. We learn about systems and we learn we just love learning. So I was just and then it just went further and further. And then I was a pretty big thing happened in my life. I'd actually gotten married to my partner because we were going to move overseas together. So it was this whole thing. And then it was weird after that happened, COVID hit and then we couldn't move. And I kind of was I think I want to see a therapist because I was feeling a bit funny about things. And I was starting to think about my future and all of that kind of stuff, which sounds crazy because I was doing it in the reverse. I got married, then thinking about my future. But then I went to see a therapist. And then from there, I was okay, I went deep and there's a few things here, but I actually want to now invest in a life coach. So then I found a life coach and I was working with her one-on-one. And then from there, she was you're going to be a coach, right? And I was really? So she was the first person to plant the seed in there. But I was just so into this world by then. That had already been a couple of years. And then I actually had my relationship broke down at the end of 2021. So I went through that whole breakup and that's when Sarra and I connected even more deeply because Sarra was so there for me during that period. And then I guess the combination of a massive life change, I was going through all this self-development work, working with a life coach. All of a sudden I was I am not in my most fulfilled career. And I knew that for a long time. I was there for the people, I was there for the business and the strategy and all of that kind of stuff. But fashion wasn't my purpose. I was I didn't get put on this earth to dress people and help them to express themselves. That was my boss's purpose, if you know what I mean. And I was helping her to fulfill that. That's how I see it. And I was really good at my job, but I'm that's not actually my purpose. That's not why I'm on this planet. So I kind of started to connect all the dots of things that I was interested in. And it was just breadcrumbs. You don't think at the start of COVID, oh, maybe if I research this and this and this, then I'm going to be a life coach. That's not how it happened. It was 2 years of me just diving into things that I loved, investing myself, my time into courses, masterclasses, whatever I could get my hands on. And then it was people feeding back to me, you'd be a great coach and da-da-da. And then Sarra and I talking and reflecting things back to each other and then having the same business ideas. And I'm oh, that's so weird. And it was just this little trail of breadcrumbs that led me to deciding that I wanted to quit. And we said, Sarra and I hadn't said, yeah, let's do this. I was I'm quitting because I'm going to go be a coach. I'm out, but I had no business plan yet. I was I'm just quitting and I'll figure it out. And so I quit. And I just took some downtime to start because my nervous system was just on the fritz after so much hard work and COVID and all the things. And then Sarra quit probably like 4 to 6 weeks after me. And it was very soon after that we were like, let's go. And then we created the Expansive Space together and like just kicked it off from there. So yeah, it's one of those things where we always say it to our clients, like, you think that you have to have like this solid plan or that A plus B equals C. And I can guarantee you, like, that's not typically how it happens. Like, it's following the breadcrumbs of things that light you up that all of a sudden, like, the pitch becomes clear, and it's just trusting that along the journey, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's so much in what you said, but I think the following the breadcrumbs is such a huge one, because I think there's often an idea, if people aren't necessarily, if we're talking about work or where someone lives or relationships and things, these big, things in people's lives, if people aren't fulfilled, it feels like there's often but I should know what I want to do or what the next step is. The idea of following the breadcrumbs is so massive. And I think once you start tuning into that and seeing what comes up, or the synchronicities, or, just what is, like you're saying, what you're interested in, it can actually give you so much information. And I think a big part of that, which both of you touched on, is also having the space to tune into it, go through yoga, meditation, or just not checking emails 400 times a day, whatever it is, but actually having the space to then be able to follow the breadcrumbs and tune into what's going on around you.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I think COVID naturally gave us, right? Like everyone, like the whole of society had that moment in COVID, which it was like that pause and that time to just be by yourself a little bit. And people decided to spend that in different ways. But I do think that was like that forced pause that we all had, that then you could spend that time doing things that you may not have allowed yourself the space to do or see or whatever beforehand.
Yeah. I was having this conversation the other day, actually, with my brother, and we were talking about, when people set out to manifest something, they want something, or, call it manifestation, call it goal setting, when they have a vision and they want to go out for it, they hold so tightly how it's going to happen. So it's like, this is what I want to do. I want to have a life that is financially free, and I want to work in a business that I feel really fulfilled in. And they go, cool, this is what fulfills me right now. That's what I need to do in order to get there. And, I want to live a financially free life. So what I need to do is I need to do a job that's going to pay me X amount of dollars. And these are the professions that do that in order for me to get there. And it's very logical, very A plus B equals C. And the thing that Tori and I really are really passionate about is that you really need to let go of the how. You need to leave that creativity up to something other than you. And our only job, our sole job there's a lot going on, but like after you get clear in what it is that you want, it's to follow what are you drawn to, which are these breadcrumbs, and trusting that what you're drawn to is going to lead you to where you desire to go. Loosen the grip of needing to control how things are going to happen. When I was working, when we were working at our previous jobs, I had this calling to go to a yoga studio. I was like, I'm just going to go to this yoga studio, go to the yoga class. And this is just how I am. And this is how I've been for a really long time. It's like, oh, well, I feel like doing that. That's interesting. Going to go there. Like, let's see what's down there. And I was like, okay, well, cool. I'm going to go to this yoga class. And I went to the yoga class and I was in a downward dog, and I just hear in my head, I'm like, what the hell? Like, that's so, I grew up in Phillip Island. Like my parents have a holiday house there, and Tori and I were getting close. And I was like, you know what? I want to invite Tori to come with me, and let's go to Phillip Island. So went to Phillip Island. While we were down there together, we had a conversation about coaching. And I was like, what is this? Tori was like, this is what this is. And I was like, what? Had no idea. She introduced me to the whole space. Then I've come back and I've gone, cool. I did not know this was a possibility. I did not know this was a thing. Followed that, and that lit me up. And then that led me to the next thing. If I hadn't have gone to that yoga class, if I hadn't have, said, yeah, I'm going to follow going to Phillip Island, if I hadn't have invited Tori and had that conversation, I don't know where I would have ended up. But it was like, I'm not sitting there going, oh, I want to start a business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a yoga class, then I'm going to go to Phillip Island, and then I'm going to have this conversation with Tori, and that's going to get me to the business that I want to create. It's like, that's just not logical. And even when you look at the history of how you've gotten to where you've gotten for multiple things, it's like, it's not always linear. Most of the time it isn't. So when you're even thinking about in forward planning, it's like, okay, this is what I desire, and my job is to follow what lights me up. Yeah. And to follow like where I'm being pulled to, and following these breadcrumbs of interests, of things that feel good. And even when it doesn't make sense, we say this all the time to our clients, we put something out there and then, someone invites you to go out for a drink and you want to go. You have no idea who you're going to meet there, what's going to happen, the conversations that are going to happen, what inspiration you're going to have that you're going to be able to filter into something else. Maybe there's a job you have no idea that exists, yet you're so in this, like, these are the only ways that this can happen, and that limits us.
Yes. And yeah, that's such a powerful thing, because it doesn't have to be, number one, it's just listening to yourself. Simply.
Yeah.
And also, it doesn't have to be these huge, like, I'm going to move overseas or do these massive life things. It can be as simple as a conversation or a yoga class. And there's so much freedom in that, like you said, because it takes away the control and the knowing what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
Which I think is maybe a different mindset when you think about manifesting or goal setting. That can feel, or maybe from the outset, like exactly what you want, but like you're saying, the path to get there is so winding and not straight. So there's actually, it's almost like play.
It is. And that's,
we always say it's like a game. Like we're literally like you're playing a little universe, like a game with the universe. And we're not saying that the universe is trying to like trick you or like, that kind of thing, but it's almost like a dance. Like you're like, ooh, like you're flirting with it. And like you're playing this game of like, oh, like, okay, so this is what I desire. And then it's like, oh, I just listened to this podcast and that led me to this coach who's led me to this course, who's led me to this book. And like honestly, some of the biggest shifts I've had is like listening to a podcast, finding out the author, reading one of their books, massive breakthrough, next layer. Like that's just how we play our lives. Like we're like, everything is a message. Everything is like these little synchronicities and breadcrumbs of things that you can follow. And we literally just like, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? What does that mean? And you just like have fun with it. Yeah. And then, that's when you actually enjoy your journey rather than sitting there thinking, I've got this thing on my manifestation list. How on earth am I going to achieve it? I need to do X, Y, and Z. And you're just thinking about it, gripping onto it, like forcing it, trying trying to control it in a way rather than just being like, this is just like this little game. And like, I know I'm going to get there. So why not have fun on the journey?
Yeah. Which is, I'm thinking that is it totally, when you think about it like that, it totally changes the experience and your mindset around everything, it can be fun and a puzzle rather than something that's set and about control, which completely changes the experience.
And I think that people can, I think I experienced it probably when I first found manifestation, because like I was still doing a lot of self-development work at that stage, and it's like maybe that there is this part of like the perfectionist in us, or the part that does like control, that gets attracted to manifestation initially. And I think a lot of people do, where they're like, oh, awesome. Like I can literally make sure that I have the perfect partner and the perfect job and I'll be rich, and it's like this gripping, like, they see it all as control and like the way to achieve perfection in their lives. And I think it's a pretty like good mindset shift to have when you're manifesting, to be like, you're not fully in control, you're co-creating with a power bigger than you. And that's when the spirituality comes into the manifestation side, where it's like, even just finding a podcast that then leads you to another author that leads you to this, that to me is magic. That to me is synchronicities. That to me is being guided and being supported. And that's like the really fun, playful side. And it's like, you don't have to try and figure out which course to do. You can be led there. So it's just like a really good mindset shift for everyone to think about, where it's like releasing that control. You can have amazing heart-led desires for yourself, but don't sit there and grip it around the neck and be like, it has to look like this and it has to be a certain way, because that's when, you're just fully in your like control shadow over allowing the magic to happen for you.
Yeah. And it's a real balance as well between taking action and following the breadcrumbs. you know, like I feel like when I listen to so many different podcasts or read content of manifestation, it's kind of like you can't just like say what you want and sit back and relax. And then they think it's that extreme of just being really passive. And it's not. It's about being like, okay, I want to shift careers, right? Maybe that's like the decision. And it's like, okay, what makes the most logical sense in terms of a step that I can take? And it might be getting on Seek, having a look at career opportunities, applying for jobs, telling your community you're looking for a job. But in those moments of that feels really good. I know it's not the salary that I want, but I feels really good and I feel really lit up by it. You have no idea you could take that job and have the salary that you desire in 6 months' time, but you're following something that you're really fulfilled with. But they go, no, I need to do it this way because that's the way that's perfect. And that's the way that makes most logical sense. And it's like, it's just this balance between taking those logical steps, but making decisions that are in tune with yourself.
Yes. And so how would you guys describe manifestation to people who have no idea or aren't in this world? Like, yeah, what would you say manifestation is? And I guess your own experiences with this tool, I guess you could say.
So manifestation is the act of using your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions to bring something into your existence, right? The thing is that a lot of people think that you think a thought and then it comes through. And if it was as easy as that,
imagine,
you know, that's not the way that it happens. Our belief system doesn't live in our conscious mind where we're talking right now. Our belief system actually lives in our subconscious mind. So actually, I want to bring it back a little bit. So there's this woo-woo part of manifestation where it's all magical, and we bring a really practical and tangible aspect to manifestation. So yeah, there's this part where you like think it exists, you write it down, you sleep on it, Bob's your uncle, the next day you've got it in your lap, like there you go. Whereas what we say is, well, actually, if your beliefs and your thoughts and your emotions are determining what you call into your life, that's actually what you need to shift in order to shift your reality. So manifestation to us is actually a self-development practice. It's about understanding your beliefs. It's about understanding your thoughts, your emotions. And when you work with all of that, you're able to shift what you call into your life. So it works on there's a science of it as well with energy. There's also a neuroscience part of it as well. So I'll go through energy first. So with energy, it's like everything in this world has an energetic frequency. We have an energetic frequency. This podcast has an energetic frequency. Anything in this world has an energetic frequency. And in order to attract something that you desire into your life, you need to get on that same frequency of what it is that you're desiring to call in. So if we're living in a low frequency of like hate, anger, and fear, we're not going to attract the things that are vibrating of like love and gratitude and acceptance. So the work that we do in terms of self-development is supporting us to lift our energetic frequency so we can match what we desire to call in. So it's this dance of just being really clear on what it is that you desire, and then making sure that your mindset, your perception, your actions, your who you are as a person all aligns to your energetic frequency, aligns with what you want to call in.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Like I think, I think manifestation is one of those words that there's so many connotations to it, and it is that like woo-woo. Like, people think The Secret, I think, you know.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a law of attraction. Yeah.
Yeah, but people can perceive it as something that's too esoteric or woo-woo.
Yeah.
If you just think about the world and how much we don't know, or if you get a bad vibe from someone, or you think, oh, that's going to fall off, that whatever, you know, you have these kind of moments.
Yeah.
That is manifestation, or not manifestation, but it's energy.
Yes. Yes.
It's not actually woo, because
it's actually quite logical. Yeah. I feel like it's like this woo-woo thing. I'm like, I think it's more woo-woo that rain falls out of the sky, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that you don't turn it on and off. Manifestation is something you go, yep, I'm going to manifest that. I'm not manifesting anything else. It's something that is constantly happening. So what we kind of say is, all right, well, if it's happening already, you might as well bring intention to it and decide what you want to call in. And we're so focused on like, how are we feeling every single day? What are our beliefs? If we're desiring to, I don't know, be the prime minister, yet we don't believe that we're going to be the prime minister on every level of our body. Well, you're not going to get there because you're not going to take aligned action. Your energy is actually not going to match. You're going to doubt yourself. You're not going to take those steps that you need to get there. So we just work on aligning both.
Yes.
And they can come together.
Yes. And it's also just it's just a nice framework to live life, right? If it's about kind of like clearing limiting beliefs, taking aligned action, like that's just a really nice framework to live your life.
Exactly. We always say like there's so many ways that you can do self-development work. And at the end of the day, what our method does is bring you back to having a really strong foundational relationship with yourself. And so many of these modalities do, like whether you're talking about talk therapy, whether you're talking about somatic work, whether you're talking about embodiment, there's so many different sort of therapies and modalities. All of them, because we've like dabbled in everything, all of them get you to come back to the relationship you have with yourself. And it's like creating those strong foundations, understanding why you think, feel, believe, etc. about yourself and about the world around you, how that's limiting you, whether that's expanding you, whether you like, what do you want, what do you need, what do you desire, and what's holding you back, like what's stopping you from taking action. So like all of these things come back to that. And so for us, it's self-development through the lens of manifestation. And that's why we always say like manifestation is just a self-development journey, but you get to kind of, I guess, it's kind of like sprinkling the magic on top, you know, it's like we're going to do the self-development work regardless. This is the lens that we do it through. And it's like kind of brings that gain, that fun, that magic through it. So some people absolutely resonate with that and then other people absolutely don't, you know? So it's just like, it's our way of working with that relationship with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like you said before, the co-creation. It's like you're doing the work and you guys are helping people do the work to be whatever version of themselves. And then the rest is just up to, it's that co-creation. So you're doing what you can and then whatever else is happening is happening.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because I think sometimes like if we, again, it comes back to that control. Like if we were only going to trust and believe that things could happen within our own control, 100%, we would limit ourselves to what can actually happen for us as well. Like we think that we're capable of this and we're actually capable of this, but sometimes we need that like additional magic or those sprinkles on top to be able to like believe that, you know. I think sometimes if we were like, you know, if we were just completely in control, I think we would live far less amazing lives. You know, there's so much magic in this world. And I feel like if you look at artists and you look at like singers and writers and all of that kind of stuff, I'm like, tell me that they're not getting like these amazing downloads from something bigger than them to create this magic that they can share with the world. Like if they were just going to set it all up and control it themselves, like I'm sure that wouldn't occur to the level that it does, you know?
Yes, exactly.
I love that. Like even if you're not into manifestation, right? It's just a great way of feeling every single day. Working on yourself and just constantly growing and seeing life through a different lens. And sometimes we say this a lot, actually. Sometimes nothing needs to change other than your perspective. Something physically might not be different in front of you, but the way that you're viewing it is different. And that to me is so special. And that to me means, you know, just as much as manifesting the actual tangible physical reality into your life, just by seeing things differently. I'm like, that's what I love every single day. That's what I really love.
Well, I think it was you guys, I'm pretty sure, posted something yesterday, and I can't remember the exact wording, but the premise was like, what if you shifted your mindset from, you know, worrying about what will happen to being excited by what will happen or whatever. So it was something like that.
Yes.
But that's huge because it's such a simple shift.
Yes.
But it actually completely changes everything.
Yeah.
Yes. I loved that meme that we posted because it's literally saying like, okay, just say you are taking a leap. So just say you quit your job and you don't have a plan yet. So you could literally spend all of your time being like, oh my God, I'm doubting myself. Should I have done that? Should I ask for my job back? How am I going to make money? What am I going to do? Like, what am I good at? Where are my gifts? Like, you could like go through that whole thing of like worrying because there's the unknown, right? And then the exact same situation could also be like, oh my God, I can't wait to find out what I'm going to be doing next. I'm really excited to have this space to myself. I feel really supported. I really trust that everything's going to work out. I'm so excited to do this course that I just found on the weekend that I feel really lit up by. I don't know where it's going to lead, but we'll see. Like, it's the same reality that is playing out, or the same external circumstance, we'll call it, but your perception of your reality is completely different. One is full of worry and stress and anxiety, and the other one is full of like excitement and like, awareness and like openness to opportunities. And when we're looking at the world through the lens of like that lack or that stress, etc., we're actually closing ourselves off even more. So we're kind of like in our heads, stuck, kind of contracted, and just spending all of our energy, literally giving energy to the problem that we see, rather than actually opening and like looking around us and like seeing the breadcrumbs and seeing the synchronicities that are happening and following the little path. And that's more magnetic, like that feeling of like that open heart to the world where you're like, oh my God, I feel so magnetic and things are just working out for me. It's so amazing, So it's like, that is literally mindset work. It's the same thing in front of you, and how you approach it is going to completely determine your experience of it, the feelings that you feel, and also potentially the outcome of that journey, or at least the quality of the journey to the outcome. Because I believe you're going to make it regardless. If you have a strong desire of something in your life, I believe that if you're willing to do the work, you're going to get there regardless. But it's like, which journey would you like? Are you going to go with the open-hearted, expansive, magnetic journey, or are you trusting and etc.? Are you going to go with the contracted, stressed and anxious journey? And we can flow between the two, I just want to say as well. It's not one or the other. And that's our work. That's what Sarra and I do. Because every day you wake up and you're like, okay, where am I at today? How am I feeling? What doubts and limiting beliefs are coming up for me? Where's my energy at? Am I in low vibe or high vibe? I know how to support myself. So I'm getting myself back into this open-hearted, magnetic version of me where I see possibilities, where I see opportunities, X, Y, and Z. Whereas if you don't do that work and you're just kind of like in your head, stressed, etc., that's just like you're keeping yourself in that contracted state for a longer period of time.
Yes. I think that's a really important point of around the fluctuation between the two. And you're not always going to feel like, woo, everything's like amazing and possible, but it's just the ability to tune in and understand where you're at, and then, make decisions or do practices, whatever it is, to then try and slowly what is needed to then get back to your most centered place.
Yeah. I have a lot to say about toxic positivity that I won't go into now, but it's exactly that of just being like, oh, you need to be happy all the time. You need to be high vibe all the time. And it's like, we're humans. We're meant to experience the full spectrum of emotions, because in the lows we learn, and we're just meant to, as humans, we're meant to go through it all. So it's not about being angry or disappointed or frustrated with ourselves when we do get into those lows. It's exactly what you said, Ingrid. It's recognizing, having that awareness, and choosing from that conscious space rather from an unconscious space. So be like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit down today. Like, what can I do to support myself today? Like, how can I support myself? Like, giving yourself a little hug, like being there for yourself, and then moving through it and actually allowing yourself to experience it. Because if you don't, you suppress it, and then that causes a whole other lot of problems. But yeah, it's not about being high vibe all the time. It's about experiencing it all and having the tools to support yourself there. Like when Tori and I made the decision, which was a really difficult decision, to quit our jobs and to then start a business, like the first time us starting this business, it's not like we've got bravery and we've got courage because we have the tools, and we know that even when we're feeling doubt, even when we're feeling fear, even when we're feeling, in the lows, we can hold ourselves in that space and we can move through it. We're not going into like an unsettled space.
Yes. I think that's the thing. Like some people, like even just using an example, like obviously we manifested having our own company. So that's like tick. We both manifested even just starting one. And then now, of course, we're manifesting like that growth and just like next levels of business, which is really exciting. And the thing is like so many people are like, oh, is it hard? Like, how's it all been? And like, is it challenging? X, Y, and Z. And Sarra and I are like, yeah, it's been like, there's been challenges, but it's been really great. Like, and that's not toxic positivity, because it's like what we've actually done is like, as soon as a doubt comes through, we voice it to each other and we're like, we go on our little walks and I'm like, you know what? I'm just feeling this right now. And so I was like, that's okay. And, we chat it through. And then if I need to do some more work on it or I need to do a practice or X, Y, and Z, I do it. And then we're like, sweet, off we go. Like, I'm not sitting and stewing on these doubts or anything that naturally comes up on our journey to manifest the business that, we dream of. And it's like your perception of what's happening, the perception of the challenges in front of you is again going to determine your journey, because we're literally like, oh, starting a business has been great. It's been so much fun. We've loved every second of it, X, Y, and Z. But it's not that we haven't experienced anything that's, it's not like there hasn't been any challenges or there hasn't been moments of doubt or stuff like that. It's like we've absolutely done it, but it's like we are so capable and so strong in supporting ourselves that it's the most enjoyable journey ever.
Yes, yeah. And also just aware that there'll be both. There'll be the high or the fulfillment of starting your business with the challenges and the doubt, and they actually just coexist, and it's part of.
It's just duality. Yeah, life.
Yeah. We're not like, oh God, we shouldn't be starting this business, or I don't deserve to have this, or like X, Y, and Z, because we've done so much work on our self-worth. We've done so much work on our egos. We've done so much work on our inner critics. Like we know those little reporting tools. Like as soon as I have certain thoughts, I'm like, oh, there we go. We're in low vibe. There's my inner critic back online. Okay. Like let's work with that, And I'm doing my little practices, having a chat to my inner critic. I'm like, stand down, girl, stand down. We got this. And it's just like, it just becomes second nature. And that's how we approach everything,
Yeah. So I think sorry. I was just going to say that, like, yes, you experience the highs and lows, but the length of which you sit in them shifts and the rate of which you bounce back shifts.
Yeah.
So instead of sitting in something for a really long time, it'll be a short period of time for as long as it needs to be. And then it'll be like, cool, let's move through this now, rather than being like, I'm going to sit in this for weeks or months or Yeah.
We always chat to clients about that. We're like, it's not about being perfect, or it's not about not having challenges, and it's not about never feeling down at all, or being like, oh my God, I'm in low vibe, damn it. Like, no, it's actually just about your bounce back rate. And it's just the best feeling when someone all of a sudden goes, oh my God, like I've really just supported myself and I've turned something around. So like something that would literally knock me for a week has knocked me for a few hours. And I'm like, get it. Like that is amazing, because you could spend that week feeling down, not looking at anything, not seeing all the synchronicities that are popping up for you, stewing on your thoughts, spending all your energy in that low vibe. Or you could spend a few hours supporting yourself and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're back, and you're seeing life through that beautiful abundance.
Yes. And then human design.
Oh, yeah.
Design is like, I would say, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a foundation almost of your business and what you do. And that's how I first met you guys, was doing a human design session and then calls with you, it's actually been so powerful. I really didn't realize how kind of powerful human design was. So for those who don't know what human design is, could you explain that? And why is it such an integral part of your business and what you do?
So human design is a system kind of similar to astrology in that it uses your birth time, date, and location to reveal a unique blueprint that shows you how you best thrive and operate in the world, in your work, in your relationships, and in your life. So you plug all your information in and it spits out all this information that is just so accurate to who you are as a person in your authentic core. Now, what happens is when we come into this world, we learn conditioning, we learn the do's, the don'ts, the shoulds, the shouldn'ts. That's weird. That's not good. Don't do that. Do that. And we start to form ourselves and mold ourselves into this person that we think we should be rather than who we may not be. So we start to learn, we start to really shame aspects of ourselves because we don't think that it's normal or good or acceptable or enough. And what human design does is it says, hey, this is who you are meant to be. Every single person on this earth is so unique in how they operate. And this is who you're meant to be. This is how you're best meant to utilize your energy. This is how you're best meant to make decisions. This is how you're best meant to process information, all this information. And what it does is it gives you a little bit of acceptance. And I'd love to hear how you felt after that as well, Ingrid, in terms of like with me, when I first learned my human design, I felt like, oh my God, I feel like someone's seen me for the first time. And it's not weird that I'm like that. I always shamed myself for making logical decisions when my human design is to trust my gut. So when I used to want to go with my gut, I used to be like, oh, like that's something that I feel so strongly about. But society tells me I need to think about the most logical decision to make that decision. And what it does, it gives you this language and understanding of yourself so you can accept yourself more. You can come from a compassionate space and come from a loving space. And that's why it's such a core foundational part of what we do. And it's often right at the beginning. We want people to understand who they uniquely are so they can stop with the shaming of, or they can at least get a bit closer to accepting themselves and stop shaming themselves as much, and come to this place of, you know, wholeness. So then they can, when they're desiring things, they understand how to then attract opportunities, how to be in that alignment with your energy, how to be in alignment and co-create with the universe. Because when we're resisting so much to how things should be, we're not in harmony, we're not in flow. And our objective is to get into that flow state.
Yes. Well, I guess, yeah, like I think one of the reasons it was so powerful was say if someone asked me what my skills were at work or what I was really good at or my strengths were, I would have said, previous to doing the human design with you, I just get things done. I'm super quick. I just go. Like I'm a real doer. And that is actually the opposite of, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception is that's actually the opposite of a projector, which is what I am. And that awareness, honestly, has completely changed how I view myself, but also what I'm capable of and just where my strengths are. Like, I'm now like, oh no, that's actually me doing that was so out of alignment in terms of who I am and what my strengths are. It's quite hard to explain, but and things keep popping up for me. Even we did that, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago. Yeah. And and sometimes I have these moments where I'll remember like something I said or something I did, and I was like, oh, that's a strength or that's an insight. And it was just something that happened. But having awareness that that's actually kind of where my strengths and skills are, I don't know, it's been really powerful, actually.
Tell me, do you feel like you accept these parts of you a bit more? And do you feel like you've got a bit more compassion for the way that you operate, who you are as a person?
That's definitely still a work in progress, I would say, but much more than before, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I love listening to you speak on that because we share the same energy type, you and I, Ingrid. And I had such a similar experience. Like, I remember when someone was telling me, it was my boss actually, and like a couple of people from work were telling me about human design initially, and they were like, oh my God, let's guess Tori's, and they were all like manifesting generator 100%. And then when we looked at it, it was projector, and they were like, what? Because I was absolutely not in alignment with it. Like I was just going hard. Like I was go, get all my shit done, like little workaholic, absolute little workaholic. And partying on the weekends. Like I did not rest. Even when I was resting, I was like, got to be doing something, unless I was like deathly hungover and literally couldn't move. So it was like, there was no rest happening. I was hardly sleeping well, like all the things, right? But I would burn out all the time. Like I would get sick, I would burn out, I would need like 3 weeks off. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like give me a minute. I need to book myself into a retreat. Like it would just be this big, like, and then bang. And when I learned about my human design, I was like, oh my gosh. And it was around the same time, you know, it was kind of coming, it was around like COVID and everything as well. So then I actually had that time to rest in COVID, and I really connected to it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love resting, and I love sitting in my bed and researching, like I was saying at the start, like that lit me up so much, like getting cozy, reading, like and it's just not stuff that I let myself do prior. And even to this day, like learning about human design and just like seeing the difference, because Sarra is a manifesting generator, like I can literally just have a moment resting or do a yin class or do like have an infrared sauna or those kinds of things I have to put through my week. And then I usually find like little ideas will pop in, or the energy to have something will go, oh, I'll have my insight. Like I need time to process. If I don't give myself that time, I all of a sudden am just like literally using my mind to make decisions, and it's not actually like more intuitive, which I'm very intuitive. So it's just interesting. And I think we've got to remember that like the world, we always like with human design, we say that the world's kind of constructed around the generators and the manifesting generators, because society loves productivity, getting shit done, like, you know, working, all those things, which is amazing. Like, thank God they exist because we actually get things done in the world. But it's like the other types who aren't energy beings, they're the ones that actually have to do a lot of conditioning work in a way where it's like, okay, I'm not meant to do all day. How do I operate then? Like, how do I get things done? And it's really learning the nuances of it. But then Sarah's always like to me, just remember, like being a projector doesn't mean you get less done. You actually get more done in less time. You work smarter, not harder. But it's all about learning the ebbs and flows of your energy. So it's just like, you can tell in my voice where I talk about, I'm just like, oh, it's just so interesting to learn, and give yourself permission to do things differently, even if you've done something for 30 years the same way prior, you know?
It was so spot on and felt much more maybe tangible and almost practical than something like a horoscope, even though it's applying, you know, 5, or I can't remember how many out there are, but 5 different types to billions of people. But it just felt so like, oh yeah, this is right. This is correct. Comparatively to horoscopes.
Yeah. I've always felt that as well. Like I never really resonated with astrology or horoscopes. Like I still don't quite get it. Like I'm interested in it, right? Like I do find a lot of interest in it, but I've never been like, oh, that's me. Yes. That's so me. And so I never used to read all of that. So when human design came around, I was like, okay. And then when I read it, and I was like, oh my God, this is spot on. It was freaky. And even when we've had sessions, people are like, are you a psychic? And I'm like, no, I'm not a psychic, but this is who you came here to be. And this is just a reminder and a little roadmap for you to come back to yourself.
I think that's such a great way to put it. It's like this remembering of.
Yes. Oh, I love that, Ingrid. It is. It's remembering.
Before all the other stuff. And it gives you permission to act in alignment with yourself.
Yes.
Rather than how you think you should be behaving or living.
Yeah. We always say human design is just like a big permission slip. And again, we always say, like, don't let it limit you either. Like we never want anyone to be like, oh, well, you know, I have to do things like this because now I've read my human design. We're like, that's actually not the point. It's actually more about developing that. It's a tool, just like anything else that you use. And it's able, like, layering that information. But I think what it does is just gives you the permission just to start questioning things that aren't true to you, that aren't authentic to you, that aren't in alignment for you. And so you actually start to just use that as a bit of a compass to start those self-reflection questions, which a lot of us don't do initially. So it's such a beautiful, like, gateway self-development tool for a lot of people as well. And we find that if someone, like, a lot of clients haven't even gone on the self-development journey, but they're attracted to human design, it's just such a beautiful way to just start those little questions and those self-reflection prompts, don't you think?
Yeah. It's such a nice entry to self-development.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I guess for you guys, it gives you like a starting point to then be able to work with one of your clients in the best possible way
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we utilize that information with coaching. Like we'll take that in, like unique reporting tools, how somebody likes to process information, how someone likes to best attract attract opportunities, make decisions. Like we'll really utilize that information to be like, yeah, go with your intuition, trust your gut, whatever theirs is, to make those decisions. So it's really, really helpful.
Yes. Yeah.
And we even use it together as business partners. Like our whole dynamic, I feel like I'm almost like, how do people in business relationships not know each other's human design? Because, you know, if Tori's got a really huge intuitive hit, it's like, I'll really respect that. And even yesterday we were making a decision, Tori's like, does that feel really good in your gut? And I was like, yeah. She goes, cool, let's go with it. Like we have a bit of respect for each other. We have a lot of respect for each other, full stop. But with understanding human design, it just gives us a bit more language to understand how each other operates. Like if I want to go all day with working, or if Tori wants to work a shorter amount of time and get more done, I'm not going to be like, well, I did this many and you did this many. I'm like, Tori got probably the same amount of work done that I would have gotten done in a whole day. So it's just about understanding how each other works.
Yeah, which is amazing on a personal level, but then also from a productivity and business.
Yeah,
that's so beneficial.
Yeah,
from a business point of view as well.
And even when you know your human design right and you don't know anybody else's human design, it also gives you compassion for other people. Even if you don't know what theirs is, you start to just see things differently and you're like, okay, everybody operates differently. Everybody does things in a different way. It doesn't make anybody better or worse. It's just different. So even if you don't know, you can have that same level of respect for that person to be like, they're working in their own unique style.
Yes. I think that's a really beautiful difference between human design and astrology as well, because, you know, there's like a lot of Gemini and this can't be together and this can't be together and oh, you're that, we're going to be great friends. Like it's a bit of like oh, you're that type, like disgusting, like people talking about going on dates and sussing it out and like not going on a second date and stuff. And I'm like, what? Whereas I feel like human design, there's no like compatibility and this type should be with this type and X, Y, and Z. It's more about like, oh, you're that and that, I'm that. Like, how do we work together? Where could we trigger each other? Like, what is the shadow of that dynamic? There's no better or worse. There's no right or wrong. So it really is more about accepting others and yourself. And I always say, like, you know, obviously, when you accept yourself the most, you're more easily able to accept others around you, regardless of whether it's through human design or the self-development tool. So, yeah, it's really that's definitely a key difference between human design and astrology, I think.
Yes. Yes. And have you've found that with yourselves, like since understanding your human design, there's more acceptance of yourself?
Oh. Absolutely. Absolutely. I used to, like I was saying before, I used to shame myself on some level of how I used to operate. And now I'm like, that's just me, you know, like, especially when I was working the previous position, like I used to work so much and people would be like, you're going to burn out, like, be careful. And I'm like, I am so lit up by this, that this is actually giving me energy and fueling my energy. And I loved it. So don't shame me for wanting to like do something for a long period of time, or, you know, even like with reading a book, like I don't sometimes love to finish a whole book because I'm just kind of like, I'm over it. Like I want to go to the next thing. And before it was like, why can't you just finish it? Like stick to something and finish it. And it's like, I actually don't care. Like I don't need to finish it. Like, I got what I needed out of it, on to the next, or different hobbies or different interests. Like I always say that if somebody's got a manifesting generator child and they want to do ballet for 2 weeks and they want to do soccer and they want to go to basketball, like don't sit there and you need to stick to the one thing and like finish it throughout your whole life. You need to stick to the one thing. It's like, no, just keep changing, keep doing whatever lights you up and whatever you want to follow. Even just like in social situations, I'd be like, I don't want to go to this because it's going to drain me. And now I have that language and acceptance to be like, don't want to go because I'm following what lights me up and not what drains me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could give so many different examples, but throughout so many things just in day-to-day life, definitely allows me to accept parts of me in the way that I operate.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think I would have stopped going at that capacity if I didn't get that permission from human design. I mean, I'm sure I would have figured it out eventually, let's be real, because again, like we said, you're always meant to figure out the lessons that you're meant to figure out. But I feel like it's given me a permission slip to think about how to do things in the most easeful way for myself, how to work smarter, not harder, how to be productive, how to rest and like really nourish myself, nourish my energy, to how to communicate with people, because as a projector, it's like you have so much insight and so much advice, but not everyone's ready to hear it. So really learning that for a while, I would just tell everyone what I saw, and like I would probably upset a few people, or like they just weren't ready to hear, not upset them, but they were a bit like, yeah, cool, like don't want to hear it. Whereas now I've like completely shifted the way that I communicate with friends and stuff like that, and where I like, if I have something that I want to share, I can just check in and say, do you want advice on that, or do you just want to vent? And that even just like little shifts like that. So I think it's definitely a massive permission slip. And then, yeah, therefore you accept those little unique things about you. Like you're like, cool, like that's, I'm designed that way. Like it's all good. And so just automatically you're just way more accepting of who you are and how you operate, and you're like your little idiosyncrasies and stuff that we all have, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Okay. So personal development and growth and continual growth is something obviously you guys are interested in, and I'm so into it as well, and have found it so helpful, like so helpful in terms of like understanding myself and working through things and just living like a better life. But I've been thinking recently that sometimes actually growth and continually working on yourself can actually be a reason not to do the things or start the business or whatever. And what I really like about you guys is, along with the exploration and, you know, the personal development and working through limiting beliefs, there's also practical tools, and embodiment is a big part of what you guys do and is necessary in the personal development kind of journey. You know, if you're only kind of talking about it or intellectualizing almost, you know, your own journey without doing the practical work, there's no integration. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that, and also I guess your own experiences with doing the work, like intellectually, but then also in the real world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I can so speak into this because I am such a little intellectual mind, and that's definitely where I had to start. Like in that first, like, you know, little while, it was just consuming the books, and it was just consuming the docos, and it was consuming the podcast, right? And I could have stayed there forever because, yeah, it's just easy just to hear, and I could just get it. Like I was like, yeah, awesome. In my mind, got that concept, makes total sense, right? But if you're not actually grounding that into your body or into your experience, or actually taking aligned action through that concept, or, you know, like you said, integrating it into your life, no shifts are really happening, and no growth is really happening other than at like a mental level. So you can talk to people about concepts, but are you actually a living embodiment of those concepts? So it's so easy, like, for people, especially because, you know, manifestation is such a buzzword. So I'll use that. It's everywhere on social media. It's everywhere on TikTok. You can learn so much about it. And I do think that so many people probably just consume a lot of that content, and then they're like, cool, I'm manifesting. They could speak about manifestation. They're like, yeah, I'm manifesting that. It's like this little trendy word to say, I'm manifesting. Yeah, I want that in my life. Are you actually going, I want that? Well, one, are these authentic desires? Who am I really? Like, why do I want the things that I'm saying that I'm wanting? Are they coming from my ego, or are they coming from a really heart-centered, authentic place? Am I living my life in alignment with this? Like, am I getting myself one step closer every day, or am I doing the exact opposite to this person or this thing that I'm wanting to call in? Are my behaviors aligned with that? What are all the things that I'm telling myself why I can't have that thing? What are my limiting beliefs around it? Why am I scared for it to come into fruition? You know, what are my fears around it? Like, what are the things that I've learned in my childhood and all my life experiences that have said that I can and can't have that? And then why am I holding myself back from taking aligned action, and the things that I can control, putting one's foot in front of the other in order to actually create that into my reality, like doing my part, doing my 50% with the universe, you know? So you can kind of like intellectualize, manifesting, and then are you actually doing the things that are going to create, you're doing your 50%. Are you doing your 50%? And that's when you're actually integrating a concept and making it an embodiment of your life. Because we don't necessarily now, especially to the point that we've gotten to, sometimes I'll sit down and like, you know, really do my limiting beliefs and do my EFT tapping on things. And I'll, you know, go through my list and like relist things whenever I feel I need something fresh or whatever it is. But manifestation to us is now just a way of life. Like we are constantly listening to our thoughts, like, oh, I'm calling this in. All of a sudden I've got this limiting belief. Oh, I've got that limiting belief. Like, where did that come from? Is that serving me? No. Okay, sweet. I'm going to flip it. What's my energy that I want to give to now? We're just constantly like, it's just, I feel low vibe today. Okay, awesome. Like, what am I going to do about that? I'm going to grab my toolkit. I'm going to do some shaking. I'm going to do some meditation. I'm going to do a visualization. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to support myself. Like, it's just a way of life for us. But obviously, like for me, I had to intellectualize manifestation before I was able to start and do practices intentionally. Like, here's the method of manifestation, right? I'm going to do the method. And then all of a sudden it just becomes something that you live and breathe. It's just a part of you.
Yes.
Oh, that was a perfect explanation to us.
Yeah. And it really was. And as you were talking, it made me think it's like the slightly different, but it's like the coming together of like spirituality and being human and the importance of those working together, you know. It's like the concepts and the intellectualizing, but then like you're saying, actually doing that in your human life, you know, which sometimes I think is maybe the missing piece, but those two things have to work together to, you know, I just live, you know, a full and like kind of prosperous life, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. I think like we always say that we take like these really lofty concepts and they're kind of like floating up in the clouds. And then we're like, we pull them down and like, okay, this is actually a practice that you can do. And this is actually how to integrate this into your life. And that's what we love about the way that Sarra and I work, which is, you know, and there's people who are working in the 5D. There's our beautiful energy healers. There's people who are working in the 5D, and that's their realm and like that's what they own, and it's amazing. And then there's the people who are like really in the human experience and they're not doing any of that work and they're just like in the matrix, you know. And then I feel like Sarra and I are kind of like in between the two, where we're like, okay, here's this amazing concept. Are you doing manifestation or, okay, supporting yourself or whatever it is? And then it's like pulling it down. It's like, this is actually how you integrate that into your life and how you embody that. We do it through these practices or through this method, X, Y, and Z. And then all of a sudden, like with practice and with consistency, all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, it's just coming naturally to me now. Like if we work with a client and at first they have like a challenge that blows up in their face when we're working with them, you know, at first we're like, okay, so here's some tools that you could use to help yourself move through that. Have you thought about this perspective or this perspective? We're offering that guidance. By the end of the container that we're working together, like they're not even coming to us when the challenges arise. They go straight to their toolkit. They're using something. They're doing their own perception shift, I should say. And then they're like reporting back to us about how they've like just supported themselves. And we're like, get it, you know? So it's like, it's just that process of, taking those concepts down and bringing it into the human experience and just like you said, just embodying those tools.
I love that, Tors. Yeah. It's like, you need to believe in yourself. Yeah, but how?
Yeah.
You need to love yourself. Yeah, but how? You need to not stress as much. Okay. How? Like, it's not like, I feel like we don't get given those actual practical tools that are tangible that you can actually say, yeah, I understand how I'm going to implement this into my life and embody it.
Yes, exactly. Which is huge, because amazing. Like, say, don't get stressed, but okay.
Yeah. Like, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Oh, exactly. Cool. Thanks for saying that. I'm just not going to worry about it now.
Exactly.
I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah.
The embodiment and the, I guess, deconditioning is a full mind and body change, you know, so that all needs to happen in the day-to-day and the human experience.
Yeah.
And I think I've said that to you guys before, that I think something that is so amazing about what the both of you and your business and what you do is this accessibility. You know, I think, like you said, Tori, you do take more spiritual or like esoteric concepts, but you make it so accessible to kind of the everyday person, for lack of a better phrase. And yeah, it means that more people are probably open and accepting of these things, which then, you know, means that they can work on themselves or be a better person to their friends and family or whatever it is. And I think, yeah, that's a really powerful like space to be in, and kind of, I guess, offering to have is this accessibility and making personal development and spirituality in a way, yeah, available to the everyday person.
I love that. That's actually part of why we've created this business and what our intention is behind all of our posts, all of our TikToks, our coaching containers. Human Design is offering this practical, grounded approach that people can actually take away and feel empowered, not just leave with information, but they're like, oh, I actually feel empowered now to support myself in my life with this practice. So I love that you've just reflected that back to us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I like literally teared up then. I'm like, oh, because we always just go, how can we make this as accessible as possible? And like, we're so excited to continue to develop our business and like really ground that accessibility value even further into our product suite, which will be so amazing. But yeah, we're kind of like, okay, just we're so passionate about how this work has changed our lives. And yes, we've manifested things, and yes, like there's been all these amazing things, but what we are genuinely like, oh, so lit up by is how mine and Sarra's brains work in this world, how we choose to show up, how we perceive the world, and like the mindsets that we have. Like, we are just so like grateful for having a rock solid foundation, rock solid mindsets, and how that's shifted the way that we see the world. And we always say sometimes when we're like out of our bubble, because then when we're communicating with people who haven't done self-development work and stuff, when we just get so passionate, like, you don't have to be experiencing what you're experiencing, or you don't have to be feeling what you're feeling based on your external circumstances. You can literally live the exact same life. Yeah. Nothing needs to change in this moment. We obviously want to manifest, but let's just say like nothing changes. And we could say, like, you will see things differently and have a better experience, and therefore be creating a better reality for yourself. And it's honestly that simple. So we're just like, like if everyone could kind of operate from that space, like it would just be such a more expansive, like loving, connected, joyful, easeful world than what I feel like a lot of people are experiencing.
Yes, for sure. I mean, there's nothing to add to that because it's so spot on. It sounds so cliche, so I hate to say it, but it just all starts with you. Like, I really do feel, and in the past few months, it's really like kind of hit home, but if you change yourself and the way you perceive things and your mindset, the whole world changes, both from how you see it, but also then the ripple effect of you changing that and doing the work. It changes the world. I really believe that.
Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah, I agree. I so agree with that. Like, you just changing yourself without even saying a thing to anyone else could just be the spark for someone else to do the same thing. They could be the spark for someone else to do the same thing. And that's so tangible. You know what I mean? Like, when we think about like the world at large and all the things that are going on, it's like so big, and we need systemic change and all of those things. But it's like, genuinely, what can you control in this moment? And what you can control is how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you behave, what your habits are, how you connect with others. Like, that is actually what you can control. And that is like such a massive shift.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, last question. What's next for you guys? Like, what's next in the business? What's happening? What are you excited to kind of share and do in the next iteration of the Expansive Space?
All right. Okay, so we'll keep it on the D low. However,
let it rip.
A little clue is the accessibility that we spoke about is really going to be something that Sarra and I prioritize and bring to the front of like what we offer the world very shortly, which is really exciting. So just making this method that we have as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, and just also like really driving the message home that self-development doesn't need to be this heavy, like intense experience. It's something that like for every person, like everyone can do self-development. It can be in your pocket, it can be on the road, it can be traveling, it can be at home, it can be all the things. So yeah, there's a little sprinkle for you, but that's like our real goal at the moment, to bring that accessibility to the forefront of the business.
Amazing. Well, can't wait to see what that is.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Like, yeah, we'll see what it is, but it sounds amazing. And I'm sure that you guys will obviously create something incredible, which is awesome.
Thank you so much, Ingrid.
Yeah. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for listening to that chat with Tori and Sarra. I really hope you enjoyed it. I will link to their website and Instagram in the show notes. They share really helpful and valuable information around like mindset tips and tricks and shifting our perspectives, and have some really great resources. So definitely check them out. And yeah, check out their website for their human design and coaching offerings. They're awesome and really great to work with. So yeah, check them out, and yeah, hope you enjoyed the conversation.